I'm Morgan Hayes, 32, and successful by most standards except in my parents' eyes. That fateful night forks clinked against china as my father's words sliced through the air. You're not half the woman your sister is. My mother nodded in solemn agreement. I pushed my chair back and walked out, the weight of Haley's shadow finally too heavy to bear. In my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, I realized this moment would define the rest of my life. The constant comparisons, the overlooked achievements, the perpetual second place had ended tonight. I turned the key in the ignition, decision made. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from today? If my experience with family drama resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join others who've found their worth beyond family expectations. Now let me tell you what happened after I drove away from that dinner table. The 15-minute drive home felt like traversing an emotional minefield. Each stoplight gave me unwanted seconds to replay not just tonight's dinner but a lifetime of similar moments. Growing up as Haley Hayes' younger sister meant living in perpetual eclipse. 3 years my senior Haley wasn't just older, she was brighter, louder, more noticeable in every way that seemed to matter in the Hayes household. By age 10, her bedroom shelves sagged under the weight of soccer trophies, debate medals, and perfect attendance certificates. My parents attended every game, every ceremony, applauding until their hands must have ached. Meanwhile, I developed a quieter passion for art. I remember my 7th grade year particularly well. I'd spent months perfecting a mixed media piece for the regional youth art competition. The morning of the awards ceremony, I came downstairs in my nicest dress, portfolio tucked under my arm. "Oh, honey," Mom had said, hardly looking up from making Haley's special pregame smoothie, "Dad and I can't make it today." Haley's championship game was rescheduled, and you know how important this is for her college applications. "But my artwork—" "Morgan, don't be selfish," Dad interrupted. "Your sister needs our support. This game could determine her scholarship offers." I attended alone, accepted my first-place ribbon with only strangers clapping, and returned home to find nobody had even asked how it went. When I finally mentioned my win at dinner, Mom said, "That's nice, dear," before turning to pepper Haley with questions about her game, which they had lost. This pattern continued into adulthood. Despite building a successful career as a graphic designer at one of Chicago's top agencies, my parents regarded my profession as little more than a hobby. At family gatherings, they'd introduce Haley, now a pharmaceutical sales representative, with effusive praise about her client portfolio and commission bonuses. I'd be mentioned as our other daughter, the artsy one. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, snapping me back to the present. 12 texts and 3 missed calls, all family. "Mom, you're being dramatic. Dad, apologize for your behavior." And Haley, way to ruin dinner again. I tossed the phone back down. Pulling into my apartment complex's parking garage, I made a decision. Tonight's dinner wouldn't be just another chapter in the Hayes family dynamic. It would be the final page of that story, and the first page of something entirely new. Tomorrow, I would stop seeking their approval and start demanding their respect, or remove them from my life entirely. As I rode the elevator to my 10th floor apartment, I began mentally drafting a plan. For the first time in my life, I would put myself first without guilt or apology. And anyone who couldn't support, that family included, would no longer have the privilege of my presence in their lives. The next morning, I woke to an email that would normally have sent me dancing around my apartment. Ridgway and Associates, a prestigious advertising agency whose business I'd been pursuing for months, wanted to discuss a potential partnership. This account could elevate my career to heights even my parents couldn't ignore. Before I could reply, my phone rang. Haley's face lit up my screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Morgan, you need to get over yourself," she said without preamble. "Mom and Dad are upset." "Good morning to you too," I replied, my tone deliberately neutral. "Don't be cute, you know you overreacted. Dad was just making conversation." I closed my eyes, counted to 3. "Telling me I'm not half the woman you are isn't conversation, Haley. It's cruelty. Oh, please, you've always been so sensitive. Her voice took on that syrupy quality she used when playing the mature, reasonable sister. They just worry about you, Morgan. You're 32 single working in that creative field. They want stability for you. My field pays my bills just fine. And speaking of money, do mom and dad still help with your mortgage? A pause. That's different. We have children to think about. Another pause. Actually, that's part of why I called. We're expecting again. I was going to announce it last night before you made a scene. The familiar sting of being upstaged shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Even my justified anger would now be overshadowed by Haley's pregnancy news. Congratulations, I said flatly. Thanks, Mom and Dad are thrilled. Dad's already talking about setting up another college fund. She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Though between us, I think we'll need their help with more than just college at this point. Blake's commission checks haven't been great lately. Of course they would help. They always did. After ending the call, I immediately phoned Amber, my best friend since college. She's pregnant again, I said when she picked up. Hello to you too, Amber laughed. And let me guess, Queen Haley called to make sure you knew. I recounted both last night's disaster and this morning's call as I made coffee. Amber had witnessed the Hayes family dynamic firsthand for years and never minced words about it. Morgan, listen to me, she said firmly. This Ridgeway opportunity is huge. Focus on that. Your family will never change if you don't force them to. They've created this dynamic where Haley is the sun and everyone orbits her. Stop participating. Easier said than done. Is it though, because it seems like participating is making you miserable? She was right. After promising to update her on the Ridgeway pitch, I hung up and spent the day crafting the perfect proposal. That evening, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet my parents for coffee. They had texted repeatedly, claiming they wanted to clear the air. I should have known better. The local Starbucks provided neutral territory. Mom arrived first, Dad parking the car. Morgan, honey, we need to discuss your behavior, she started before I'd even sat down. My behavior? Dad told me I'm worthless compared to Haley and I'm the problem. He never said worthless, she corrected. And you know your father. He doesn't always phrase things delicately. Dad joined us, offering no greeting beyond a gruff nod. Did you hear Haley's wonderful news? Mom beamed. Yes, she called. We're going to help them convert the guest room into a nursery, Dad said, his first words to me since the dinner. Might need to postpone that cruise we were planning, Patricia. We're happy to do it, Mom agreed. Family comes first. The revelation shouldn't have shocked me. So you're financing another renovation for them after paying off their credit cards last year. They exchanged looks. How do you know about that? Dad asked. Haley mentioned it, just like she mentions all the financial help you give her while I've been supporting myself since graduation. Well, Haley has 3 children, 4 now, Mom said defensively, and you're single with no responsibilities. No responsibilities. I run my own department. I pay my bills. I built my career without a cent from either of you. And we're very proud, Mom said automatically. No, you're not. You've never once visited my office or attended any of my professional events. You dismissed my promotion last year but drove 4 hours to attend the kindergarten graduation of Haley's oldest. Dad's face reddened. Don't be petty, Morgan. Haley needs our support. And I don't. You've always been independent, Mom said, as though this were a character flaw. Haley's more family-oriented. Translation: Haley stayed dependent on them, giving them continued control and influence in her life. I hadn't, so I was punished with indifference. I have a meeting with Ridgeway and Associates tomorrow, I said. It could be the biggest opportunity of my career. That's nice, dear Mom, replied the exact words she'd used when I'd won that art competition all those years ago. Now, about Haley's nursery, we thought maybe you could help design it since you do that sort of thing. Something snapped inside me. I stood gathering my things. Morgan, don't be dramatic, Dad warned. I'm not being dramatic. I'm done. Done competing for attention I'll never receive. Done watching you finance Haley's life while criticizing mine. Done being the family afterthought. I walked out for the second time in 24 hours, but this time with a sense of liberation rather than devastation. Behind me, I heard my mother say to my father, "She gets this from your side of the family." 3 weeks passed in a blur of late nights coffee and creative intensity. The Ridgeway proposal became my obsession, a portfolio of designs that represented the best work of my career. I poured everything into it, not just professional skill but emotional investment. This wasn't just about landing a client anymore. It was about proving my worth, if only to myself. My communication with family remained minimal. Mom sent daily texts, mostly updates about Haley's pregnancy symptoms and nursery color schemes. I responded just enough to avoid another confrontation, focusing my energy on work instead. The evening before my Ridgeway presentation, Haley called unexpectedly. "Hey, how's the big pitch coming?" she asked, her tone uncharacteristically interested. Surprised by her awareness of my work, I hesitated before answering. "It's good. I'm presenting tomorrow." "That's fantastic. Tell me about it." For 20 minutes, I explained the concept, the clients, the potential impact on my career. She asked questions that seemed genuinely curious, made encouraging comments. For the first time in years, I felt something like sisterly connection. "I'm proud of you, Morg," she said, using my childhood nickname. "This sounds amazing." "Thanks, Haley. That means a lot." "Hey, I actually have a contact at Ridgeway. Blake's college roommate works in their marketing department. Want me to put in a good word?" "Oh, that's okay. I'd rather earn this on my own merits." "Don't be silly. That's what networks are for. Let me text Jeff and tell him to look out for your presentation." Before I could protest further, she'd moved on to discussing her pregnancy, and I let the matter drop. Maybe this was Haley's way of extending an olive branch after years of competition. The next morning, I arrived at the agency, an hour early, presentation materials perfectly organized, wearing my lucky charcoal suit. I was reviewing my notes one last time when my phone rang. Ridgeway's number. "Miss Hayes, this is Sandra from Ridgeway and Associates. I'm calling about your presentation today." "Yes, I'm just reviewing my notes now. I'm looking forward to." "I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. We've decided to go in a different direction with this project." The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. "I'm sorry. We've already selected another designer who better fits our needs. I apologize for the late notice. But I haven't even presented my concepts yet. How could you?" "The decision has been finalized. Again, we apologize for any inconvenience." She hung up before I could respond. I sat motionless, clutching my phone, trying to make sense of what had just happened. How could they reject work they hadn't seen? My phone buzzed with a text from Haley. "Good luck today, knock 'em dead." A sick feeling crept into my stomach. I called the Ridgeway receptionist back. "Sandra, this is Morgan Hayes again. Could you tell me the name of the designer you selected?" A pause. "I believe it's Wilson Design Group. They came highly recommended by one of our marketing executives." "Wilson. As in Hayes Wilson. As in Haley Hayes Wilson." My hand shook as I opened my laptop and searched Wilson Design Group. The website loaded a sleek, minimalist page showcasing familiar-looking designs, my designs with subtle alterations, and the company name registered to Blake Wilson, my brother-in-law. I called Haley immediately. She answered on the first ring, her voice falsely bright. "How did it go?" "They canceled the presentation. Apparently they're going with Wilson Design Group instead." A pause. "Oh no, that's terrible, Morgan. Isn't it, especially since Wilson Design Group appears to be using concepts suspiciously similar to mine." "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating that you stole my work and gave it to Blake to present as his own." "That's ridiculous. Blake has his own design business. It's hardly my fault if your ideas weren't original enough. Her denial might have been convincing if I didn't know her so well. The slight pitch changed the defensive acceleration of words. Funny thing about the Hayes family email, I said, it automatically forwards everything to all accounts, including that enthusiastic message from Jeff thanking you for sending over Morgan's portfolio and promising to make sure Blake gets the account instead. Silence. Morgan, you're misunderstanding. Stop lying, Haley. You've been sabotaging me our entire lives, but this crosses a line. This was my career, my work. Don't be so dramatic. It's just business. Blake needed this account. We have another baby coming, and his firm hasn't been doing well. You don't have anyone depending on you. That's your justification, that I'm single so my career matters less. Look, Morgan, I'm sorry you're upset, but what's done is done. Maybe this is a sign you should consider a more stable career path like Mom and Dad always suggested. I hung up, rage and betrayal burning through me. Not only had my sister stolen my work, but she genuinely believed her actions were justified because of our different life circumstances. Within minutes, my email pinged with a message from the Hayes family account, likely sent by my mother to everyone without realizing what she was forwarding: an exchange between Haley and Jeff at Ridgeway with my entire portfolio attached. Instructions to use this as a reference point, but make sure Morgan doesn't get the account. I forwarded it to myself as evidence, then closed my laptop. Years of competition of being overlooked and undervalued culminated in this ultimate betrayal. My own sister had not just sabotaged my success, but stolen my creative work, my intellectual property, to benefit her husband. The realization was devastating. This wasn't sibling rivalry, this was calculated harm. And my parents had enabled it for years, creating an environment where Haley believed she was entitled to take whatever I had built. The following days blurred into a haze of devastation. I called in sick to work, unable to explain to my boss what had happened without sounding paranoid or unprofessional. How could I tell him my own sister had sabotaged the biggest opportunity of my career? My apartment became my sanctuary and my prison. Blinds drawn, phones silenced, I retreated from the world. Boxes of half-eaten takeout accumulated on my coffee table. Emails went unanswered. Deadlines approached and passed. The carefully constructed professional life I'd built began to crumble around me. On the 5th day, someone pounded on my door. "Morgan Hayes, I know you're in there," Amber's voice called. "Open up or I'm using the emergency key." I hadn't showered in 3 days. My hair hung in greasy strands, and I wore the same sweatpants I'd put on after the canceled presentation. But I knew Amber wouldn't leave. "You look like hell," she said when I opened the door. "Thanks." She pushed past me, grimacing at the state of my apartment. "This isn't you, Morgan. I've let you wallow for almost a week, but enough is enough. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. Your sister is a manipulative nightmare who stole your work, and your parents enable her toxic behavior. But destroying yourself isn't the solution." She opened the blinds, letting in painful streams of sunlight, then began collecting takeout containers. "Get in the shower," she ordered. "We're getting out of this apartment." 45 minutes later, freshly showered and wearing clean clothes, I sat across from Amber at our favorite lunch spot, picking at a salad I had no appetite for. "Have you confronted your parents?" she asked. "What's the point? They'll take her side. They always do." "Maybe. But you should at least—" She stopped mid-sentence, eyes fixed on something over my shoulder. Before I could turn to look, her hand gripped mine. "Don't react," she whispered. But Haley just walked in with a man in a suit. My stomach clenched. "What do they look like?" "Corporate, expensive watches. They're sitting down now, looks like a business lunch." I carefully shifted position to glimpse their table. The man wasn't Blake, he was older with silver hair and a designer suit. With a jolt, I recognized Jeffrey Coleman, the Ridgeway marketing executive whose emails with Haley I'd seen. "That's him," I whispered. "The Ridgeway contact who helped her steal my client." Let's go, Amber suggested. This isn't good for you. No. Something compelled me to stay. I need to hear what they're saying. We changed tables, moving to one partially hidden by a decorative plant, but within earshot of their conversation. Pretending to be engrossed in our meals, we listened. The campaign launch is next week, Jeff was saying. The concepts you provided are excellent. Your husband is very talented. Haley laughed, that practiced social laugh she'd perfected. Blake will be thrilled to hear that. Though I admit the style is quite different from his previous work. A pause. He's been exploring new techniques. Well, they're remarkably similar to the samples your sister sent over. Almost identical, in fact. Haley's voice tightened. What are you implying, Jeff? Nothing at all, he backpedaled. Just making conversation. Another drink. They continued talking, but blood pounding in my ears drowned out their words. Hearing my work discussed, praised, and attributed to Blake was too much. I stood abruptly, drawing attention from nearby tables. Morgan, don't, Amber whispered urgently. But it was too late. My legs carried me to their table before my brain could intervene. Hello, Haley, I said, my voice unnaturally calm. Fancy meeting you here. Haley's face drained of color. Morgan. What a surprise. Jeff looked between us, confusion evident. Jeff Coleman, right? I extended my hand. I'm Morgan Hayes, the designer whose portfolio you received. Morgan, please, Haley hissed. We're in the middle of a business lunch. Yes, discussing my designs. The ones Blake suddenly created after you asked me about my presentation. Jeff shifted uncomfortably. I should step out. No, stay, I insisted. You should know who really created the campaign you're about to launch. This is ridiculous, Haley said, face flushing. Jeff, my sister is going through some personal issues right now. Personal issues? I laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Is that what we're calling intellectual property theft now? People at nearby tables were staring. A waiter hovered uncertainly nearby. Morgan Amber appeared at my side. Let's take this somewhere private. The rational part of me knew she was right, but months, years of repressed anger overrode reason. No. I'm tired of being quiet. I'm tired of Haley taking whatever she wants and everyone letting her. You're making a scene, Haley snapped. You stole my work, my voice broke. You knew how important this was to me and you took it anyway. The restaurant had gone silent. Jeff looked mortified. I think I should go, he mumbled, placing money on the table and sliding past us. Jeff, wait, Haley called, but he was already heading for the exit. She rounded on me, fury replacing embarrassment. Are you happy now? You've ruined everything. I ruined everything. That's rich coming from you. Amber tugged my arm. Come on, this isn't the place. I allowed her to lead me away, legs suddenly weak. In the restaurant bathroom, I collapsed against the wall, tears finally breaking free. I can't believe I did that, I whispered. He needed to know the truth, Amber said, handing me tissues. It won't change anything. Even with proof, who would believe me over Blake Wilson, family man with 3 kids and a pregnant wife? I'm just the bitter, jealous sister. Then make them believe you, Amber said. You have evidence, Morgan. Use it. And destroy my relationship with my family forever. What relationship? The one where they belittle your accomplishments, where your sister steals your work, where your parents finance her life while ignoring yours. Her words hit home, but the thought of exposing Haley publicly felt overwhelming. Even after everything, some part of me hesitated to deliver that final blow. Think about it, Amber advised, but don't let them get away with this. When we left the restaurant, I found a yellow envelope tucked under my windshield wiper, an eviction notice. 3 months behind on rent, courtesy of the financial strain from reduced work hours while preparing the now stolen Ridgeway pitch. Perfect. Just perfect. 3 days later, I sat cross-legged on my living room floor, surrounded by job listings, rental advertisements, and past due notices. With my professional reputation potentially damaged by the Ridgeway fiasco and rent money running low, my options were dwindling. I'd managed to secure a 1-month extension on my eviction by emptying my savings account, but it was a temporary solution to a growing problem. My phone rang an unknown number. "Hello, Morgan, it's Blake." Blake Wilson. My brother-in-law's voice was the last I expected to hear. "What do you want, Blake?" "We need to talk. Not over the phone. I have nothing to say to you. It's about your designs, the ones Ridgeway is using." He lowered his voice. I didn't know Morgan, not until after. "Save it. I'm not interested in your excuses. I found your original files on our home computer. Haley didn't even bother changing the document properties, they still have your name in the metadata." He paused. "This isn't the first time, is it?" That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I've been going through old projects. There's a pattern. Work I supposedly created that I have no memory of designing. Clients Haley helped me get." I sat up straighter. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's wrong, and because I'm tired of living like this, the constant spending, the manipulation, the lies. Did you know your parents paid off our credit cards again last month? $60,000 of debt Haley never told me about." My mind reeled. 60,000. Shopping mostly. Designer clothes, jewelry. A weekend spa trip with friends she told me was a work retreat. His voice hardened. "I'm done enabling this, Morgan, and I'm not letting her steal your work. Why should I believe you? You benefited from her theft. Check your email. I've sent you all the original files I found along with Haley's correspondence with Ridgeway. Use it however you want, I'll back you up." After we hung up, I found his email dozens of attachments showing a clear trail of intellectual property theft. Not just my Ridgeway designs, but other projects over the years. Emails where Haley negotiated with clients using my portfolio as reference for Blake's work. I called Amber immediately. "You're not going to believe this," I said when she answered. "Try me." I explained Blake's call, the evidence he'd provided, his offer to support my claims. "Do you trust him?" she asked when I finished. "I don't know, it could be another trap. Or he could be telling the truth." What reason would he have to fabricate all this evidence against his own wife? To shift blame, maybe Haley's setting him up as the fall guy now that Jeff is suspicious. There's only one way to find out: meet with him. Despite my reservations, I agreed to meet Blake at a coffee shop the following day. I arrived early, selecting a table with clear sightlines to all exits, a precaution that seemed melodramatic but necessary given recent events. Blake arrived precisely on time, looking different from the confident brother-in-law I knew. Dark circles underlined his eyes, and his normally impeccable appearance seemed rumpled, as though he'd dressed in a hurry. "Thank you for coming," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I'm not making any promises, Blake. I want to hear your side, that's all." He nodded. "That's fair." He pulled out his laptop. "I've been doing some digging since we spoke. It's worse than I thought." For the next hour, he walked me through financial records, design files, and email exchanges. A clear pattern emerged for years. Haley had been appropriating my work, presenting it as Blake's, and using it to build his design business, a business I now realized he had minimal involvement in. "Why didn't you notice this before?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. "Haley handles all the business aspects, client communication, proposals, finances. I just show up to client meetings with the finished designs she gives me and take credit." He looked genuinely ashamed. "I know how that sounds. But we had an arrangement. She managed the business side. I took care of the kids and house since her sales job required travel. So you never questioned where these designs came from." She said she hired freelancers. I believed her. His expression hardened. "Until I found your files. And then the bank statements." "What bank statements?" "Transfers to accounts I didn't know existed. Designer purchases. Money from your parents. We're drowning in debt, Morgan, despite the business supposedly thriving. And you never suspected anything before now." I trusted my wife. The simple statement hung between us. Look, I understand if you don't want to work with me, but you deserve to know the truth and I can help you prove it. I studied him searching for signs of deception. What do you get out of this? Blake exposing Haley harms your business, your reputation. Peace, he said simply. Truth. A chance to rebuild my life honestly, even if it means starting over. He hesitated. And my kids deserve better than what Haley's teaching them. Success at any cost isn't success at all. Something in his words resonated with me. Despite years of family dysfunction, I'd always liked Blake. He seemed genuine now, his distress palpable. If I decide to pursue this, I said carefully, what exactly are you offering? Evidence, testimony, whatever you need to reclaim your work and professional reputation. I tapped my fingers against the table, considering. I need time to think. Of course. He stood to leave, then paused. Morgan, there's something else you should know. The money your parents have been giving us. It's not just helping with the mortgage. Haley's been telling them we're on the brink of bankruptcy, that the kids might lose their health insurance, their college funds. None of it's true. Why would she lie about that? Control, money, the thrill of manipulation. He shrugged helplessly. I don't know anymore. But they've been taking money from their retirement accounts to save us from financial problems we don't actually have. This new information shifted something in me. Stealing my work was personal, but manipulating our aging parents out of their retirement savings, that crossed a line I couldn't ignore. Send me everything you have, I said. All of it. I'll talk to my lawyer friend and figure out next steps. A flicker of relief crossed his face. Thank you, Morgan. I know this isn't easy. After he left, I remained at the table processing our conversation. Working with Blake felt risky. He was still Haley's husband, still entangled in the family dynamic that had caused me so much pain. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. With his evidence and support, I might be able to reclaim not just my work, but my professional dignity. And perhaps finally force my family to see the truth about their golden child. I pulled out my phone and texted Amber, I'm in. Let's take back what's mine. The conference room of Andrea Reynolds' law office felt both intimidating and reassuring. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Chicago, and the sleek glass table reflected our serious expressions as Blake and I laid out the evidence we'd gathered. Andrea, my friend since law school when I'd designed her class campaign posters for free, reviewed the documents with clinical precision. Her reputation as one of the city's top intellectual property attorneys had always made me proud to know her. Now I hoped it would help save my career. This is substantial, she said finally, looking up from her tablet. Multiple instances of copyright infringement, documented proof of theft, testimonial support from an insider. She nodded toward Blake. Morgan, you have a strong case. Relief washed over me, so I can get my designs back, stop the Ridgeway campaign. Better than that, we can potentially pursue damages for all instances of infringement, not just Ridgeway. Based on what I'm seeing here, this has been going on for years. Blake shifted uncomfortably. I want to help Morgan, but I also need to protect my children. Will this become a public spectacle? Andrea's expression softened slightly. My recommendation would be to approach this strategically. First, we contact your current employer Morgan with evidence of the theft. Their legal team will want to protect the company's intellectual property, which includes work you created while employed there. Davidson Design doesn't know about any of this yet, I admitted. I've been avoiding everyone. That needs to change immediately. With your employer's backing, we approach Ridgeway directly with proof that the campaign they're about to launch uses stolen property. Most companies want to avoid public IP disputes. They'll likely settle quietly and drop Blake's firm. Blake nodded, looking simultaneously relieved and anxious. And Haley, I asked. My parents? Andrea's expression turned cautious. Family matters are always complicated. Legally, Haley could face serious consequences for intellectual property theft, especially given the documented pattern. But whether you want to pursue that avenue is a personal decision. The thought of Haley facing legal repercussions gave me pause. Despite everything, she was still my sister, still the mother of my nieces and nephews. I don't want to destroy her life, I said slowly. I just want my work recognized as mine, and I want the manipulation to stop. Then let's focus on reclaiming your professional reputation first, Andrea advised. The family dynamics can be addressed separately. We spent the next 2 hours developing a strategy. Andrea drafted formal letters to both my employer and Ridgway, while Blake provided additional documentation of how the theft had occurred. By afternoon, I felt equipped with a clear plan for the first time since that fateful dinner. My next step was the hardest, facing my boss at Davidson Design. Richard Davidson had built his agency from nothing into one of Chicago's most respected boutique design firms. He'd taken a chance on me as a fresh graduate, mentored me, and eventually promoted me to lead my own team. The thought of telling him how badly I'd failed to protect our work made me physically ill. "Morgan Hayes," he said when I entered his office the following morning, back from the dead. "I'm sorry for disappearing, Richard. I can explain." "I certainly hope so. We've had clients calling deadlines, missed your team in disarray. This isn't like you." I placed Andrea's folder on his desk. "I need you to look at these documents." As he reviewed the evidence, his expression transformed from irritation to shock to cold anger. "This is our work," he said finally. "Work we paid you to create for us." "Yes. My sister stole it and gave it to her husband's company, who sold it to Ridgway." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Why didn't you come to me immediately?" "Honestly, I was ashamed, afraid you wouldn't believe me, terrified of the professional fallout." I met his gaze directly. "But I'm done hiding. This is theft, plain and simple. What are you proposing we do?" "My lawyer has drafted this cease and desist letter to Ridgway. With the company's backing, we demand they halt the campaign and return our intellectual property. All evidence suggests they were unaware of the theft, so they'll likely comply rather than risk a public scandal." Richard studied me for a long moment. "And your sister? Your brother-in-law?" "Blake's cooperating. He's providing evidence and testimony. As for Haley," I swallowed hard. "That's complicated." To my surprise, Richard stood and walked to the window. Family often is. He turned back to face me. "I once lost a major account to my own cousin who stole my client list. Thanksgiving dinners were tense for years." The personal admission from my normally reserved boss caught me off guard. "What did you do?" "Exactly what you're doing now. Stood up for myself, professionally kept family matters separate." He returned to his desk. "Davidson Design will back you fully, Morgan. Our legal team will contact your attorney today, and I expect you back at your desk tomorrow. We have clients who depend on your talent." Relief nearly buckled my knees. "Thank you, Richard." "Don't thank me yet. We still have to clean up this mess." His stern expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, the work in question is some of your best. No wonder your sister wanted to steal it." With Davidson Design's legal resources now supporting my case, events moved quickly. Ridgway received our cease and desist letter, and after reviewing the evidence, immediately halted the campaign. Jeff Coleman called personally to apologize for the misunderstanding, explaining that he'd become suspicious after my restaurant confrontation and had already been investigating the similarity between Blake's designs and my portfolio. "I'd like to meet with you directly," he offered. "The concepts were exceptional, Morgan. If you're willing, we'd still like to work with the actual creator." Victory tasted sweet, but I knew the hardest confrontation still lay ahead. My parents had called a family dinner to sort things out following what they described as troubling accusations. Haley would be there, undoubtedly prepared to paint me as the villain. This time, however, I wouldn't be facing them alone. Blake had agreed to attend separately and confirm my claims. Amber would drive me to provide moral support. And most importantly, I'd be armed with irrefutable evidence of years of manipulation and theft. As Amber's car approached my parents' suburban home, anxiety tightened my chest. "You don't have to do this," she reminded me. "You've already won professionally." "I need to finish it," I said, watching the familiar house come into view, one way or another. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, determination in every step as I walked toward the front door. The moment I entered my parents' dining room, the tension was palpable. Dad sat at the head of the table, his face set in the stern expression I'd grown to dread as a child. Mom hovered nearby, arranging flowers as though perfect centerpieces could somehow fix our broken family dynamic. Haley was already seated, eyes red-rimmed but chin lifted defiantly. Morgan, Mom greeted me with forced brightness. "You remember where you sit." Of course I did, the same place I'd sat for 3 decades of family dinners across from Haley, positioned to witness every appreciative parental glance directed her way. "Actually," I said, placing my portfolio on the table, "I think I'll sit here tonight." I pulled out Dad's chair at the head of the table. His eyebrows shot up. "That's my seat. We're all adults here, Dad. The patriarchal seating arrangement seems a bit outdated, don't you think?" Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. "Who could that be?" Mom frowned. "We're not expecting anyone else." "I invited Blake," I said calmly. "I thought we should have all relevant parties present for this discussion." Haley's face drained of color. "You had no right." "He's still family, isn't he? Father of your children? Or does family only matter when it serves your purposes?" Mom returned with Blake, whose uncomfortable expression suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. The tension in the room doubled. "What is this, an intervention?" Dad demanded. "In a manner of speaking," I replied. "Please, everyone sit down. I have something to say." Reluctantly, they complied. Dad took the seat usually reserved for guests, his discomfort at the arrangement evident in his rigid posture. "I understand you've called this dinner to discuss my troubling accusations." I began making air quotes. "So let's discuss them." "Morgan, there's no need to be dramatic," Mom interjected. "We just want to clear the air. Haley says you've been making some concerning claims about her." "They're not claims, Mom. They're facts." I opened my portfolio and removed a stack of documents. "For years, Haley has been stealing my design work, presenting it as Blake's and profiting from it professionally and financially." "That's ridiculous," Dad scoffed. "Is it?" I slid the first document toward him, side-by-side comparisons of my original designs and the versions Haley had provided to Blake's clients. "These are date-stamped files showing my original work, created months before Blake supposedly designed them." Mom barely glanced at the papers. "There must be some misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," Blake said quietly. "Morgan's telling the truth." All eyes turned to him. Haley's expression morphed from shock to fury. "You're taking her side after everything I've done for you," she hissed. "I'm not taking sides, Haley. I'm acknowledging facts." He pushed another document forward, emails between Haley and various clients negotiating terms for designs she'd stolen from me. "I found these on our home computer, along with Morgan's original files still bearing her digital signature." My father studied the documents more carefully now, his frown deepening. "This looks concerning. But surely there's an explanation." "There is," Haley said tearfully. "Morgan's always been jealous of me. Now she's convinced Blake to turn against me too." "Jealous?" I couldn't contain my bitter laugh. "Of what exactly? Your life built on lies and manipulation." "Of my success, my family. Everything you don't have because you chose career over relationships. I chose independence over exploitation. And my career would be even more successful if you hadn't been stealing my work for years." Mom stood abruptly. "Girls, please. This hostility isn't helping anything." "No, Mom, what isn't helping is your refusal to acknowledge the truth when it's literally in front of you." I pointed to the documents. "Your perfect daughter is a thief and a liar." Morgan Dad's voice held a warning. It's true, Blake confirmed, his voice steady despite Haley's glare. And it goes beyond the design theft. Haley's been lying about our finances too. He produced bank statements showing the substantial transfers from my parents alongside Haley's excessive spending. You told your parents we needed money for the children's medical expenses and education, he addressed Haley directly, but you spent it on designer clothes, jewelry, spa weekends. Mom sank back into her chair, face pale. Haley, is this true? For the first time, Haley seemed at a loss for words. We did need help. Not $60,000 worth, Blake countered, and not repeatedly. Dad's expression hardened as he examined the financial documents. We've been withdrawing from our retirement accounts to help you. You said the children might lose their health insurance. They might have businesses unpredictable. Business built on stolen work, I interjected. Haley's composure cracked. Tears streamed down her face, but I recognized the performance, the same one she'd used since childhood to deflect consequences. I was just trying to provide for my family, she sobbed. Morgan doesn't understand what it's like to have children depending on you. She only has herself to worry about. That's not an excuse for theft, Haley, Blake said firmly. You benefited from it too, she shot back. Yes, and I'm ashamed of that, but I'm trying to make it right. My parents exchanged troubled glances. I could see them struggling to process this new reality, one where their golden child had systematically manipulated them for years. Even if all this is true, Mom said carefully, surely we can handle it privately. Family matters should stay within the family. The familiar refrain, family matters stay private, had been used to bury so many uncomfortable truths over the years. This isn't just a family matter, I said. It's professional theft, intellectual property violation, fraud. Are you planning to press charges? Dad asked, his voice tight with concern for Haley even now. That depends on her. All eyes turned to Haley, whose tears had mysteriously dried the moment she realized they weren't working. What do you want, Morgan? She asked coldly. I want you to admit what you've done to me, to Blake, to our parents. I want you to publicly acknowledge that the work you stole is mine. I want you to apologize to the clients you've deceived. And I want you to stop, completely. And if I refuse, then my lawyer proceeds with legal action, and this becomes very public very quickly. Silence fell over the table as Haley considered her options. Finally, she looked at our parents. Are you going to let her threaten me like this? After everything you've invested in my family? It was the wrong approach. Dad's expression hardened further. That's exactly the problem, Haley. We've invested our retirement savings based on what you told us were emergency needs for our grandchildren. His voice grew firmer. If these documents are accurate, you've been lying to us for years. Richard, surely, Mom began. No, Patricia. Look at the evidence. He gestured to the papers spread across the table. All these years we thought Morgan was being difficult, uncooperative when she objected to how we treated Haley. Maybe we've been wrong. His words, perhaps the first acknowledgement of their favoritism I'd ever heard, landed like physical blows. Haley's face flushed with anger. So now Morgan's the perfect daughter. After one dinner with some paperwork she probably fabricated. I didn't fabricate anything, I said calmly. And I don't want to be the perfect daughter. I just want to be treated with basic respect. I want acknowledgement of my accomplishments instead of constant comparison to you. And I want my work recognized as mine. Fine, Haley snapped. Take the credit, take the clients, take everything. You always have to win, don't you? The irony of her accusation was breathtaking. This isn't about winning, Haley. It's about truth. I stood gathering my documents. I've said what I came to say. The evidence speaks for itself. What happens next is up to you all. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. For what it's worth, I never wanted it to be like this. I just wanted to be valued for who I am, not constantly measured against who I'm not. As I stepped outside, the weight of 32 years seemed to lift from my shoulders. Whatever happened next, whether my parents finally acknowledged the truth about Haley, whether legal action became necessary, whether our family could ever heal, I had spoken my truth. I had stood up for myself. And for the first time in my life, I had walked away from that dinner table, not in defeat but in dignity. The professional consequences of Haley's actions materialized swiftly in the following weeks. Ridgway and Associates not only severed ties with Wilson Design Group, but publicly credited me as the creator of the campaign concepts they'd nearly launched. Jeff Coleman personally arranged a meeting where I presented my original vision directly to their executive team, resulting in a contract triple the size of my original proposal. "We value integrity as much as creativity," he told me after signing the agreement. "What happened was unfortunate, but your response demonstrated professionalism under extraordinary circumstances." Word spread through Chicago's close-knit design community not through malicious gossip, but through the natural network of professional connections. I received calls from several of Blake's former clients curious about the designer whose work they'd unknowingly been purchasing. Most transferred their business to Davidson Design after learning the truth, leading to an unprecedented period of growth for our agency. Richard Davidson called me into his office one morning about 3 weeks after the family confrontation. "The Ridgway campaign launches next week," he said without preamble, "with your name properly credited. And we've signed 3 new clients formerly with Wilson Design. I know, it's been a whirlwind." He studied me over his reading glasses. "How are you handling it all?" The question caught me off guard. Richard rarely ventured into personal territory. "Professionally, better than I could have hoped. Personally, I hesitated. It's complicated. Family usually is." He removed his glasses, a sign I'd learned meant a rare moment of personal connection was coming. "Your parents called me yesterday." "What? Why?" "They wanted to verify your position here, your accomplishments, your reputation." A small smile crossed his usually serious face. "I may have spent longer than necessary detailing your contributions to this agency over the years." The thought of my parents reaching out to learn about my professional life, something they'd never shown interest in before, left me speechless. "They're trying," Morgan Richard said gently, "in their own way." I nodded, uncertain how to feel about this development. My parents had indeed been making awkward attempts at reconciliation. Mom called twice weekly with stilted inquiries about my work. Dad sent a formal email congratulating me on the Ridgway account. Neither mentioned Haley directly, but their slightly defrosting attitude suggested the family dinner had indeed forced some reevaluation. Haley herself had retreated into radio silence after Blake moved out the day following our confrontation. Through Blake, I learned she'd begun therapy. Whether genuinely seeking help or simply performing contrition for our parents remained unclear. The children spent weekends with Blake in his temporary apartment, an arrangement he said was difficult but necessary. My relationship with Blake had evolved into something unexpected, not friendship exactly, but a respectful alliance born from shared adversity. We met occasionally for coffee, carefully avoiding personal topics beyond brief updates about the children whom I still cared for deeply despite everything. During one such meeting, Blake revealed he was considering divorce. "Haley's behavior isn't changing," he explained. "She's just getting better at hiding it. Last week I found a credit card statement for a $5,000 handbag after she told me she was economizing. I'm sorry, Blake. I know this isn't what you wanted." "No, but maybe it's what I needed." He looked thoughtful. "You know, watching you stand up to your family, to Haley, showed me it's possible to break free of toxic patterns. I want my kids to see that too." His words stayed with me long after our meeting. The idea that my action had inspired positive change, however painful the process, felt like vindication beyond professional redemption. The most surprising development came from Amber, who'd been my unwavering support throughout the ordeal. You know what you should do with all this new business, she suggested during one of our regular Friday night dinners. Start your own agency. I nearly choked on my wine. What? You're getting offers left and right. Davidson's great, but you'll always be working under someone else's name there. Her eyes sparkled with characteristic enthusiasm. Morgan Hayes Design. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? The idea once planted refused to leave. I found myself sketching logos during meetings, calculating startup costs during my commute, mentally designing business cards while grocery shopping. For the first time, I allowed myself to envision a future built entirely on my own terms. I established clear boundaries with my parents during this period of professional growth. I accepted their calls but redirected conversations when they veered toward excusing Haley's behavior or minimizing past favoritism. I declined Sunday dinners until I felt emotionally ready to face the family table again. Most importantly, I stopped seeking their approval, a habit so ingrained I hadn't realized how much energy it consumed until I released it. I can't control how you feel about me or my choices, I told my mother during one particularly difficult conversation when she suggested I was being unnecessarily harsh with Haley. But I can control what behavior I accept in my life. I deserve respect, Mom. From all of you. Her silence spoke volumes about how foreign this concept remained to her, but I no longer needed her understanding to validate my worth. Blake and I developed a system for family events involving the children alternating attendance to avoid direct confrontation with Haley while ensuring my nieces and nephews maintained relationships with all family members. It wasn't perfect, but it provided a workable framework for navigating the new family dynamic. One unexpected development came from Richard Davidson himself. After I mentioned Amber's suggestion about starting my own agency, he called me into his office the following day. I've been thinking about succession planning, he announced without preamble. I'm 62, Morgan. Not ancient, but old enough to consider the future of this company beyond my tenure. My pulse quickened, and I'm considering a partnership track for key team members who've demonstrated exceptional talent and commitment. He slid a folder across his desk. Your name is at the top of that very short list. Inside was a detailed proposal, a 5-year plan that would gradually transition me from creative director to partner with an equity stake and path to eventual co-ownership of Davidson Design. This is unexpected. I managed scanning the documents. Is it you've been the creative backbone of this agency for years? I'd be a fool not to recognize that. He leaned back in his chair. Of course, if you'd prefer to start from scratch with your own firm, I understand. But I thought you might appreciate building on what we've already established together. The offer represented everything I'd worked for professionally: recognition, advancement, security, creative freedom. But more meaningful than the practical benefits was the validation from someone whose opinion I genuinely respected. Thank you, Richard. I'm honored. I closed the folder carefully. I'd like some time to consider it. Take all the time you need. His expression softened slightly. Whatever you decide, Morgan, remember this. Your work has always stood on its own merit here. No comparisons, no qualifications, no shadows. As I walked back to my office clutching the partnership proposal, I realized I'd achieved something more valuable than professional success or family reconciliation. I'd reclaimed my narrative, my right to define my worth on my own terms, independent of others' expectations or limitations. That evening, I received a text message from an unknown number. Opening it revealed a photo of my youngest niece, proudly holding up a hand-drawn picture. The message read simply, "Emma made this for her favorite artist aunt. She has your eye for color, B." I studied the child's drawing: bright, bold colors, fearless lines, joyful composition. Something caught in my throat at the thought that perhaps my stand for myself might influence the next generation of Hayes women to value their own voices from the beginning. Perhaps that more than any contract or accolade represented my true victory. 6 months after the family confrontation that changed everything, I stood backstage at the Chicago Design Excellence Awards, fidgeting with the hem of my midnight blue gown and trying to calm my racing heart. The Ridgeway campaign had been nominated in 3 categories, including Designer of the Year, an honor I'd dreamed of since beginning my career but never truly believed I'd achieve. Morgan Hayes, the announcer's voice, echoed through the ballroom. For innovative vision and exceptional execution on the Ridgeway and Associates rebranding campaign. Applause erupted as I made my way to the stage, my mind flashing back to that fateful dinner when my father's cutting words had set this entire journey in motion. "You're not half the woman your sister is." The memory no longer stung, instead it reminded me how far I'd come. As I accepted the Crystal Award, my prepared speech temporarily abandoned me. Looking out at the audience of industry peers, people who recognized my work on its merits, I spoke from the heart instead. 6 months ago, I nearly lost my voice as a designer. I began. Not through lack of skill or opportunity, but because I'd internalized others' perceptions of my worth. This award represents more than professional recognition to me. It symbolizes reclaiming ownership of my creativity and my identity. Backstage after the ceremony, my phone lit up with congratulatory messages. Among them was a simple text from my father. "Extraordinarily proud of you tonight." Not effusive by most standards, but from Richard Hayes it represented seismic change. My relationship with my parents had evolved into something I would describe as carefully cordial. We'd established new boundaries. I visited monthly for dinner rather than weekly, declined unsolicited advice about my personal or professional choices, and redirected conversations when they veered into comparative territory. They were learning, albeit slowly, to relate to me as an individual rather than one half of a lifelong comparison. Mom had invited me to lunch the previous week, just the two of us, a first in my adult life. She'd brought a scrapbook I'd never seen before, filled with clippings of my design work she'd collected over the years. "I never told you," she'd said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "but I always saved your work. Everything I could find." The revelation had stunned me that she'd secretly tracked my career while openly celebrating only Haley's achievements. "Why didn't you ever mention it?" I'd asked. She'd looked genuinely confused. "I thought you knew we were proud of you." "How could I know that, Mom, when you never said it?" Her face had fallen. "I suppose that's fair. Your father and we worried about you more than Haley. She always seemed to land on her feet while you were so sensitive, so determined to forge your own path. We pushed her accomplishments because we thought you needed motivation, not because we valued you less." The explanation, while deeply flawed, had offered a glimpse into my parents' skewed perspective. Understanding didn't equal acceptance, but it helped me contextualize 3 decades of family dynamics. Haley and I remained distant. Following our confrontation, she'd made a theatrical apology clearly designed to rehabilitate her image with our parents rather than genuinely acknowledge her actions. I'd accepted it with polite detachment, establishing clear professional boundaries while leaving personal reconciliation for some undefined future when trust might be rebuilt. Blake had indeed filed for divorce, a decision that sent shockwaves through the family, but which he maintained was necessary for both his integrity and his children's understanding of accountability. He'd established a small, legitimate design consultancy focused on project management rather than creative work, his actual strength, and referred creative needs to other agencies, including Davidson Design. My professional life had flourished beyond expectation. After careful consideration, I'd accepted Richard's partnership offer with one significant modification. Davidson and Hayes Design would be the agency's new name once I completed the partnership track. Richard had agreed without hesitation, recognizing the symbolic importance of the change. The Ridgeway campaign had become a case study in successful rebranding, attracting national attention and a flood of new business. I'd assembled a team of young designers who shared my creative vision and ethical standards, mentoring them with the guidance I'd wished for in my early career. One designer in particular, Emma Chen, a quiet but brilliant recent graduate, reminded me of myself at her age. During her interview, she'd mentioned feeling overshadowed by her twin brother's more conventional success in finance. "My parents don't really understand design," she'd explained. "They think I'm wasting my degree on drawing pictures while my brother makes real money." I'd hired her, immediately recognizing both her talent and her need for validation. Over the past months, I'd watched her confidence grow as her work received recognition and support. After the awards ceremony, I hosted a small celebration dinner for my team at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. As champagne flowed and conversation drifted toward future projects, I noticed Emma sitting slightly apart, scrolling through her phone with a troubled expression. "Everything okay?" I asked, joining her. "Just my parents," she sighed, showing me a text congratulating her brother on a promotion, with no mention of her team's award win that evening. Sometimes I wonder why I bother telling them anything about my work. The familiar pain in her voice resonated deeply. "You know, I spent years designing my life around earning approval I was never going to get," I told her. "The breakthrough came when I realized my value exists independently of others' ability to recognize it." "How did you get to that point?" I smiled, thinking of the journey from that dinner table to this moment. By walking away from tables where my seat had always been assigned and building new tables where I could sit wherever I wanted. Later that evening, I returned to my newly purchased condo, a light-filled space overlooking Lake Michigan that represented financial and personal independence I'd once thought unattainable. As I kicked off my heels and set the award on my mantle, my phone rang with a familiar number. "Congratulations, Morgan," my mother said when I answered. "Your father and I watched the live stream of the ceremony. Your speech was illuminating." "Thank you for watching," I replied, maintaining the polite boundaries I'd established. "We're having dinner on Sunday," she continued. "Nothing formal, just family. We'd like you to come if you're willing." The invitation hung between us, loaded with history, fragile with new possibility. "I'll bring dessert," I said finally. "But Mom, I need you to understand something. I'm coming as Morgan Hayes, award-winning designer and partner at Davidson and Hayes. Not as Haley's sister or your daughter who needs to prove herself." A long pause followed. "I think we'd like to get to know that Morgan better," she said quietly. "She seems quite remarkable." After we hung up, I stood at my window looking out at the city lights, reflecting on the journey that began when I pushed my chair back from that toxic dinner table. The path hadn't been straight or easy, but it had led me to this moment of professional fulfillment and personal peace that once seemed impossible. I thought about Haley still struggling to redefine herself without manipulation and comparison as tools. About my parents slowly learning to see their daughters as individuals rather than competitors. About Blake rebuilding his life on authentic foundations. About Emma just beginning her journey towards self-definition. Family healing remained a work in progress, messy, imperfect, nonlinear. Some wounds might never fully close. But I'd discovered something vital along the way. While I couldn't control how others valued me, I could absolutely determine how I valued myself. That realization had transformed everything. The woman who walked away from that dinner table 6 months ago had been running from something. The woman I'd become was walking confidently toward a future of my own design. I'd like to ask you all, have you ever had to walk away from a situation or relationship that diminished your self-worth? How did you rebuild afterward? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of finding self-worth beyond family expectations resonated with you, please subscribe for more authentic conversations about growth and transformation. Like and share if you know someone who might need to hear that they're enough exactly as they are. Thank you for joining me on this deeply personal journey. Remember, sometimes pushing your chair back and walking away isn't an ending, it's the beginning of the life you deserve. Until next time, take care of your beautifully unique self.